Udonis Haslem announced he would be returning to the Heat for his 20th season, but what does that mean for Miami's roster? Plus, the debate rages on about what makes a superstar in the NBA. Is anybody on Miami's roster good enough to be considered one? And news and notes from around the league, including Bam Adebayo and Donovan Mitchell teaming up in South Florida. All that and much more on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a late Monday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. We got a great show for you today. We're going to be looking at some recent comments from Taylor Rooks and Bleacher Report regarding what makes a star or a superstar. But we'll start off with the news on Friday that broke that Udonis Haslem would be announcing his intentions for the upcoming season at his local basketball camp out of Miami High. The scene was set for him to be making a big announcement where it all started. Of course, he played at Miami High. Campers running around. It was quite a scene. I was actually able to cover it Sunday afternoon. And this is what Udonis had to say regarding his intentions for next season.
I have decided to follow through with what me and my father had talked about. And I will finish what I started, and I will play 20 years. I will play this year. Because I talked about that with my father. And that's what we said we would do. Won't be the same. Won't be as easy. But the goal still remains the same. Win a championship, leave it on the line, know your head high when it's all over. So, got one more in me for Pop. Got one more in me for the city. Got one more in me for the team. And, after that, we'll see where it goes. But
there you have it. Udonis Haslem coming back for year number 20. An emotional scene there with several of his campers, friends and family hanging on there, as well as local media covering the event. And Udonis speaking about his father, who just passed away earlier this year. And talking about the goals that he set for wanting to play 20 seasons in the NBA. So there he was. Wes, what's your takeaway from Udonis Haslem first and foremost?
Great that he's coming back. 20th season, like you said, it was something that he had set as a goal with his dad years ago, and obviously his dad had passed away. And look, you and I talked about this last week and what we thought was going to happen, and I think this was a really tough decision for Haslem to make. I think there was a big part of him that said, you know what, I've played 19 years. I'm good. What else am I really playing for right now? Because this is a guy who has not had a lot of playing time over the last few years. So I think this was a tough decision for him to make physically and even mentally, because we know how hard it is to play in the NBA and to go through that grind every single season as a player, right? And this is not a guy who skips workouts or takes shortcuts. Even though he's not playing a whole lot of minutes, he prepares as if he is. Right? What's his phrase? It's always stay ready so you never have to get ready. That's kind of his mantra. And so with UD, I appreciate how hard of a decision this was and why he's making it. And I think I think it's a good reason to do it. Like, you want to honor your late father. There's a goal that you set. You want to reach it. And I think it's just way easier to just say, you know what, let me go ahead and just get this 20th year out of the way, because 5, 10, 15 years from now, I don't want to look back as a 19-year NBA veteran and be like, man, wouldn't it have been cool to reach that milestone? I really should have just done it for one more year. So UD does it. But I kind of want to turn it back to you, because you mentioned that you were there on Sunday. What was the scene like? What was Haslem's disposition like? Did it seem like it was a difficult decision for him to make?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, it was kind of chaotic because it was a summer camp. It was a basketball skills camp for a lot of kids that were there. They had just had a half-court shot that fell way short for $10,000. So it was disappointing. There was a game of knockout that was being held with Udonis and some other camp counselors, and of course the kids involved too. And then once the camp officially ended, it was a 2-day camp starting Saturday and Sunday. Then they kind of cleared the court to some degree, set up a little table with a background for Udonis to speak, and you could kind of see him off to the distance looking serious. And then media started milling about. Campers started hanging around, even though they weren't officially supposed to, but they start hanging around there. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is it. Just as I had talked about for several weeks, I thought he was leaning towards retirement. And nothing that I saw yesterday changed that particularly. And you kind of hinted at it when you talked about the difficulty of the decision-making process. It's why he took as long as he did. It's because I think he really was thinking about this up to the nth minute. Like up to the last minute, he was thinking to himself, you know what, I don't know if I want to come back. But ultimately what it came down to was that goal that he set with his father, and talking about his father and like the strength of the man, how he inspired him. And Udonis, the warrior, the consummate warrior, all of Heat culture, the tough guy, the one who doesn't take crap from anybody, speaking about his dad as tears roll down his face. Like,
He's crying.
Like that. They won't cover that, and they won't talk about it. And I don't know that he's clearly emotional at this point as he's talking about it. And he doesn't wipe the tear away. He kind of just, it sort of just leaks out of him because it's just so hard to even mention the passing of his father, and talking about the idea of setting this goal for him so many years ago and then now being able to fulfill it. So a big part of him, wanting to honor his father, wanting to live up to that goal that they had set to. So just a great scene, great moment for him. But
did you get emotional? Because I would imagine it must have been an emotional moment.
Yes and no. It was interesting to see Udonis speak that way because he really doesn't get that kind of opportunity now. When he does, it's all kind of curt, like not platitudes even, but just like, talking about Heat culture and kind of like that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, we got to do what we got to do. We got to work. We got to get ready to stay ready, etc. Or talking about like what he does with the younger guys on the roster and Haywood Highsmith out there yesterday too. So Eric Spoelstra, like this is the continued impact of Udonis Haslem, is that we see it with the young guys, we see it with the coaching staff. We know how valued he is around the franchise and around the NBA. But then to have that kind of moment of pure honesty and emotion, it was a powerful one. If not, I don't know that I was necessarily moved to tears myself, but at the same time, I could recognize the power of this moment for him. And glad to see it, that he had his opportunity to make the announcement on his way, kind of similarly to his friend and colleague, Dwayne Wade. Being able to define your end in the NBA is such a rarity, and for Udonis, who means so much to this franchise, absolutely deserves this opportunity.
And a couple of things that stand out to me from just the way he made his announcement, the words saying one more time for the team, one more time for the city, one more time. He's basically not just announcing that he's going to come back for his 20th season, but announcing that it will be the last one, that there will not be a 21st season, which I think we all assumed, but interesting to hear him at least acknowledge it and admit it. And so this is the retirement tour, right? You mentioned Dwayne Wade before. D Wade got this huge, sort of ceremony parade across the entire NBA for a full season. I don't know that Haslem will get that to that.
Oh, he doesn't want it. He was asked about it. He was asked about it. He's like, you saw Dwayne's retirement tour. He's like, no, that ain't for me. He doesn't want any of that. Like, first of all, he's not in the same strata as Dwayne, so he's not going to go into Dallas and get booed, or he's not going to go anywhere, because there's a reality he hasn't gotten much playing time, although he seems to think that he's going to get more this year.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Does he really? People are saying that, and one of the things he keeps saying is like it won't be one of the things that he said also is it won't be the same, and it'll be harder. My read from the comments was that he might not be playing at all, and that might be sort of a handshake agreement. But why do you think that he thinks he's going to get playing time?
I think he'll kind of have a wink acknowledgement with Spo that whenever there's an opportunity for him to get minutes, like I think there's like a pride involved with players, like especially even as you get older, like you don't want to be trotted out there as the victory cigar, the human victory cigar. So I think that's part of it. But now knowing that he's not going to get any other opportunity, he wants to go and leave it all out there. And I think that he's going to fight and claw for whatever minutes he can possibly get. And if there's no garbage time that's too good for him at this point, or not good enough for him. So he's going to be able to go out there. He wants to be able to play at a high level and still contribute.
I guess, how's that different than last year? Because he says it's not going to be the same.
Because I think the last year, again, there was that pride involved. It's like, I don't want to trot UT out there. That's insulting, especially when we have all these two-way guys or guys that are actually fighting for contract spots and stuff like that. I don't think that's the case this year. It's like, you know what? I've got a minute to play. You want to get out there? Yeah, hell yeah, get me out there. Like I think that's the kind of the acknowledgement there between him and Spo, is that if he comes back this season, he wants to be able to play more often than not.
I think it's going to be the opposite. I think there's an agreement between him and Spo and saying, you know what, like we're trying to develop some of these younger guys. We have Jovic, who we just drafted in the first round, taking some power minutes, and things like that. I wonder if that's when he says it's not going to be the same and it's not going to be easy, is the fact that he himself will have to sort of take that one last sort of step back from not even getting the garbage time minutes to the point of, hey, we need these garbage time minutes to develop other guys, whether it's Jovic or Darius Days or these Haywood Highsmith or whomever, and you very much are going to be sort of a coach, but still being a player, but even more behind the scenes than he has been before. But that's just a read on between the lines of his comments.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the conversation regarding whether or not he's a waste of a roster spot and things of that sort. But I don't know if that's necessarily an angle that we want to continue to take. Is there something that you think that we should continue to explore? Because we've talked about it before. Like, we know what
I
his
want to hit
impact.
that because that is a little bit out there, even though I do think it's a little bit of a straw man argument at this point. I tweeted this over the weekend. Like, if you still need explain to you why it is that Udonis Haslem is on this roster, then you're way past the point of ever understanding why that is, because we've been having this conversation since we've had this podcast, it feels like, David. So, we can.
We'll save it. We'll save it for the next segment.
Yeah,
we'll take a little break here. We'll save it for the next segment. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then some comments from Taylor Rooks of Bleacher Report, following a strange way of thinking about what defines a superstar and whether or not that same kind of definition could apply to anybody on the Heat roster. But first, if you keep saying that you need to make a budget and never do, and if somehow you keep missing credit card payments, which is totally normal, it happens to everybody. If you're afraid to look at your bank statements, then it's time for you to take back control of your financial life. Meet Rocket Family, formerly Truebill, our favorite financial app. So why did Truebill change their name to Rocket Money? Well, we'll tell you what we heard. Truebill is now backed by Rocket Companies. They've grown from a bill management app to a full-on personal finance empowerment tool that helps over 3.4 million people with budgeting, lowering bills, canceling subscriptions, and more, saving each of those members an average of $700 a year, excuse me. And with all that growth comes the next evolution in Truebill's story, a new name. Bottom line, Rocket Money is everything you loved about Truebill, but with a fresh look and feel. Start canceling your unused subscriptions and save money at rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. And just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show. And as always, leave a review and make sure to smash that subscribe button. We appreciate getting feedback from you, especially now during the offseason. But we're talking about Udonis Haslem making his announcement on Sunday afternoon at his basketball skills camp that he'd be returning for his 20th season. And of course, almost immediately, you get a debate about, why is he even coming back? Like, what's the point? He's not going to get much playing time. Well, we just talked about that. He seems to think that he might, or at least I'm interpreting it, that he thinks that he might be getting more playing time. You disagree. You think he's getting less playing time. Regardless, he hasn't gotten much playing time. There's also the graphic that's been going around about how much money he's made per playing minute of the last few seasons of his career. He's making a lot per minute because he's not getting that kind of playing time. And so, of course, everybody starts going in, well, what's the point? Why don't you just, why are you bringing him back, et cetera? And I think, we've talked about this before. First and foremost, the separation between a coach and a player is a huge one. Like, you can bring back all the former players you want to, but once you've got that whistle around your neck, it's completely different. Udonis has talked about it. I've asked him about it. We've heard it from multiple players in that locker room. Like,
Spo talks about it all the time.
Yes, there is just something different about being in the trenches with those guys as opposed to holding a clipboard, having a whistle around your neck and being a coach. Like, you lose something in that translation. There's no way around it. It's happened throughout all of NBA history. Once you become a coach, maybe you could be a player's coach, somebody that you can get along with, but it's completely different.
Your middle management at that point, right? It's not like the Heat kept Juwan Howard as a player on those last few Big Three teams for that same reason, even though obviously he was going to transition into coaching too. And UD doesn't sound like he's going to make that same sort of transition. But like, they already have players on the coaching staff. They have Anthony Carter. They've got all these other guys.
Allen. They're all players. Chris Quinn.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I understand like the you don't want to be middle management, and UD as a player also has a unique amount of street cred, and by that what I mean is he is the rare player that went undrafted and carved out a starting role early in his career, and then won championships. Won championships early in his career as a starter.
Yep.
Made sacrifices salary-wise later in his career, and won championships with the biggest of superstars in LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and then hung on now for 20 years. I mean, I don't know that there's a player in NBA history who has had that kind of career the way that UD has had, to play 20 NBA seasons after going undrafted. He played a year in Europe. David, this is a guy, the rare player who could speak to everybody, to any player. He could speak to an undrafted player and say, this is what you got to do what I did. He can also speak to champions and say, hey, I'm right there with you. You're no better than I am. I've got 3 of these babies. I got 3 of these rings. He could speak to anybody. He could speak to anybody that he wants to win a championship and says, hey, this is the sacrifice that you have to make in order to do that, because that's what I did. And so he's got that rare amount of street cred that gives him the ultimate amount of credibility among players. Would some of that transfer to being a coach? Yeah. But like I said, he doesn't want to be a coach. It doesn't sound like that's what he wants to do.
Right.
And so I don't even know if that's really an option that's on the table for him, because he took it off the table. He wants to go into ownership. He wants to be more of a front office. He wants to spread
a hybrid role as a kind of mentor slash owner. Yeah. No.
And the more that you and I cover the NBA, and this is something you and I have talked about a lot, but the more you get past the sort of Excel spreadsheet part of the NBA coverage, the more you get past sort of just the statistics and things like that, the closer you get, the more you really start to understand the emotional and the interpersonal factors that are such huge things in this league and really could set teams apart. And I made the argument last week that, hey, maybe Udonis Haslem isn't as needed anymore to sort of set the table culture-wise anymore.
For sure.
But that's not the only thing that he does. I mean, there's something just as a franchise, as an organization, as an ethos that says, you know what, we're going to honor this guy because we gave him that deal. We're not going to go back on our word. And that sets something as far as an interpersonal, the way that an organization treats its employees, right? Like that means something. And it also means something for Haslem. It means something for his teammates, and
it means something around the NBA. If you think people aren't watching this, I mean, and I'll tell you, it's not. I'm not reporting, but I've talked to players about Udonis Haslem and his role here. Like the players from other teams, players on the fringes that are older players. Like he is the last of a dying breed. We're watching the last dodo walking around the earth here, because nobody else will get the kind of career that Udonis Haslem has had. Nobody else will be able to say, even though I haven't been playing much for the last 4 or 5 seasons of my career, for a team to continue to extend that contract, that's never going to happen again. Nobody else is going to get that. Nick Collison before that with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Udonis Haslem now, and after that you can forget it. Because between the invention of the two-way contracts, giving these opportunities to young players where they're going to get 1/10 the amount of money that your standard NBA contract will, there's no need to pay for an older veteran at the end. There's the same level of respect for what a veteran brings to the table in terms of all that street cred you were talking about, that voice in the locker room, all those kinds of things. That just doesn't happen anymore. And you hear veterans talking about this all the time. So having said all that, Udonis Haslem has earned his right. The franchise wants to give it to him. Who the hell are you to question it? Like, what player?
The only other thing, right? Exactly. Go ahead. You're about to make.
No, I was just gonna say, what player are they going to bring in that is going to supplant what Udonis brings?
It's
like,
the only
I've seen people make that.
Yeah. It's the main argument that's out there. You could be using this on a developmental prospect or another player. Look, first of all, Udonis Haslem is the 14th player on this roster. So if they wanted a 15th player, they could do it. Now, I understand there's luxury tax concerns and everything else, but that's a Mickey Harrison problem, not a Heat fan problem. And then the other part of this, too, is, I'm sorry, what's the player that Miami missed out on that would have otherwise occupied the Udonis Haslem roster spot that would have made any substantial difference to Miami? Did the Heat win in the bubble based on that? If you would have swapped out Haslem for nobody else, you make the argument that they wouldn't have gotten that far in the bubble because they
were benching Myers Leonard, who was making $12 million a year or whatever. It's crazy. Decisions like that happen all the time. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Give me that spot that can make that. Udonis Haslem has more of an impact on this team without playing than most players would, even playing a handful of minutes here and there.
For
at
sure.
that spot, right? You're not
For
getting
sure.
Kevin Durant to be the 14th player on the roster, right? Like meaningful, like difference-making players on the court aren't occupying the 14th and 15th spots on a roster basically ever. So yeah, give me Haslem.
No, it's no. I've seen the point also is like, well, during the Big Three era, they would be able to extend it to a veteran. Like sure, like a Blake Griffin type. Well, guess what? Once the playoffs roll around, they're not getting any playing time. That rotation gets shortened, and they're going to be out watching from the sidelines the same way Udonis Haslem is. And at the same time, you don't necessarily want to bring in somebody who can upset team culture, because then all of a sudden it's just about what they want as individuals. It's like, what, this might be my last chance to get some playing time, like a Markieff Morris or something like that. Like he's fighting for his NBA life, and he might have proved to be a disruption last year. Now I'm not reporting, and I'm just speculating, but I'm just saying this is the reality around the NBA, is that players want playing time, and if they're brought in and they're not getting that playing time, well, guess what? They're not happy. And they're going to voice that, whether it's the locker room or through media or somebody else. So why bother going through that process? And yes, maybe it's a young player. Well, guess what? There's always the G League. There's always an opportunity for them to latch on. And no team has given more young players, more developmental players opportunities than Miami. And they'll continue to do that. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, and on and on.
A big part of all of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we've gone on a little bit long about the Udonis Haslem topic, but maybe we'll save our next one for the next segment. That comes from Taylor Rooks of the Bleacher Report, a news clip going around social media, having a discussion with Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics regarding what makes a superstar, and somebody that I think most people would agree is a superstar not making the cut for her. So we'll take that conversation, extrapolate it out a little bit, and look at what Miami might have on their roster and who, if anybody, might be considered a superstar here on Locked On Heat. All right, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen. I'm here with Wes Goldberg. We're breaking down Udonis Haslem's decision to come back for season number 20. Season number 20. Like 3 players in NBA history have played 20 seasons with one team. Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, and Udonis Haslem. That's historic. He's the team's leading rebounder. I mean, so much to just look at his amazing career. We just did this amazing rewatch for 2006 of the NBA Finals, like when they won their first title. And if you haven't seen that series, I mean, I had so much fun going back and looking at all these things that we kind of overlooked. When you're watching in 2006 as a fan, you're kind of caught up in the moment, the emotions of it. But now looking back 16 years later, as a member of the media and thinking about just the overall context of that series, Dwayne Wade superstar on the rise, Udonis Haslem in Game 6, playing significant minutes, hitting big shots down the stretch, hitting big free throws. Like he was, like maybe you want to dismiss everything he's done over the last couple seasons, but go back and watch Game 6 and see what his impact was. Because not only does he defend the hell out of Dirk Nowitzki, but he also comes up big on offense as a starter, playing alongside Shaquille O'Neal and Dwayne Wade, like other Hall of Famers. That's incredible. But we'll look at this comment here from Taylor Rooks. So not really a comment. Anyway, like I said before, it was a clip going around social media. She's talking to Jason Tatum, and there's a conversation about whether or not Kyrie Irving is a superstar. Then Tatum flips it back on her and asks whether or not Dame Lillard is a superstar. Rooks answers no, that Lillard is not a superstar. So I kind of wanted to start off with that, right, even though it's an NBA argument.
I didn't see the clip. Why did she just said flatly no? Did she give a reason?
She says it's because he hasn't won enough.
Okay.
I'm meaning a title.
All right. Well, Carmelo Anthony is a superstar, and he hasn't won anything. But nobody's going to debate that Carmelo Anthony is not a superstar. I disagree with Taylor Rooks. Look, I think Damian Lillard is a capital S superstar. Now, I understand that Dame did not play last year because he was injured, and so maybe somebody like Taylor Rooks or other people sort of just forget about him, and that Portland obviously fell off, and people sort of don't really know what to think about this new Trailblazers team after sort of the reshuffling they made. Are they going to be any good? Are they rebuilding? Whatever. But
what
Damian
separates
Lillard,
Kyrie Irving than Dame Lillard?
Well,
like what
Kyrie
makes
Irving has a ring, I guess. Is like I'm not defending the take, but I suppose that's sort of the logic.
That's all it comes down to, right? Is a championship. It's like, well, guess what? Dame Lillard never got an opportunity to play with LeBron James or Kevin Love, two other Hall of Famers there. So it's just like, what's Lillard's best roster? Was with C.J. McCollum, LaMarcus Aldridge a few years ago?
There were some pretty decent teams, and they made a lot of playoff runs. I know they didn't win a championship, but they made the Western Conference Finals that one year. They were always sort of quasi contender in the West, but they had a long run of success, right? Like it was very similar to what the Clippers had with Blake Griffin and Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan those years. It was a long run of winning a lot of games, 50-plus wins a season. That's winning to me. That's a lot of winning. And Damian Lillard made some of the biggest, best shots in the playoffs that we've seen over the last decade or so. He is a winner. I don't think anybody debates that. To your point, yeah, he never played with LeBron. He never had that appropriate co-star the way that basically every other superstar who has one has had over the last few years. But look, this is not Locked On Trailblazers. We don't need to keep debating Dame. I know you wanted to take this into the Miami Heat realm of things, but in terms of the basic logic, I'm just not there. I think if you look at Damian Lillard and his imprint on the NBA, and this is a point I made last week too, just go to merchandise sales, jersey sales, national TV ads, the way that Portland would get onto national TV all the time. Yeah, I mean, just look at the proof. He was a superstar. People wanted to watch Damian Lillard play, and they wanted to wear his jersey. That's a superstar.
Absolutely. I mean, he's got the commercials, he's got the marketing, everything else. Yeah. He's been a significant game changer. And I think I've made the argument before when it comes to superstardom, you have to be able to change the course of a game. And a player like Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, a few others, you can do it offensively and you can do it defensively. That's very rare. Jimmy Butler, same category.
Yeah.
Dame Lillard, not known for his defense, obviously, but his offense makes up for it. Like his ability, the Dame time is a real thing.
He's the closest thing in the league to Steph Curry. He is. Yes. It's just the way that he can just get on a roll and then snowball from 30 feet out with the three-point shooting and things like that. Damian Lillard's career could have looked like Steph. Now, I don't mean to just do like a pick and replace type of thing, but had he been surrounded with that kind of talent, who knows? Like, who knows how many championships he could have won?
All right, so I kind of hinted at it before. All right. But we'll look at the Heat roster there, and we'll start off with Jimmy Butler. Like, does Jimmy Butler fit the idea of what a superstar is? Not necessarily Taylor Rooks' interpretation, because I think both you and I agree that she might be a little off in that assessment. But as far as what a superstar is, given he hasn't won a title, but he has been very close. He's been to the NBA Finals. He was in the Eastern Conference Finals. Guided his team to the playoffs, whether it was Chicago, Philadelphia, Minnesota, even Miami, certainly. Does Jimmy qualify as a superstar to you?
To me, yes. Is he? No. And I've made the point. He's not a superstar. Okay. I don't know why. It's mind-boggling. I have no idea why he isn't.
You mean from public perception?
Public perception. He's not a superstar. In my opinion, he should be. I'm with you. One of the rare players who can change the game on both sides of the court. By the way, I kind of did more of a deep dive. The point I made, the reason why I don't believe he is objectively a superstar is because he's just not high up there in the jersey sales, and we know how jersey sales and sort of social media following and all that kind of stuff leads to national television appearances, right? And people think it's the other way around. It's not. It's not.
You're putting a lot of stock in not just the public perception, but also the money attached to what defines a superstar.
Because I think that's where the super comes in. I think the super is just another word. It's a synonym for celebrity. So if you're a star player in the NBA, I think there's little doubt that Jimmy Butler is a star player. To me, what's the difference between a superstar and a star? The star could be one of the best players in the league still. The super is a celebrity part, and unfortunately,
how about
that crossover appeal?
Okay, I could see that point, but as far as like on court productivity,
no difference.
What separates what a superstar on court is versus just a star on court? Like who's a star player that's as far as an on court player, on court production versus a superstar?
There's no difference. To me, a star and a superstar player is the same player. There's no difference to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You have all-stars. Okay. Like Andrew Wiggins is an all-star. Andrew Wiggins is not
a star, though.
Yeah, he is not a star. Like, I don't know. Are we really going to be like, well, if you're a top 7 player, you are now super. You get the super thing on the beginning of your star thing. You get the prefix of super. But if you're like the 9th best player, that's just star. Like, I don't know how we start debating the on-court production part of it. To me, the super has to mean something, and to me, super means
I think
celebrity.
It's to me. I was thinking about it because I'm also recording later on today, Locked On NBA, and I'm sure this is going to be a topic of conversation. Like it has to be about consistently being able to change the course of a game. Like to me, I know somebody who's a star. To me, a superstar consistently changes. A star can't. Like Andrew Wiggins had big moments.
He's not a star.
I wouldn't qualify him as a star either. I'd qualify Bam Adebayo as a star because he can be a game changer. He just doesn't do it consistently enough to warrant the superstar adjective.
I guess. I don't know. To me, like Bam Adebayo is an all-star. He's not a star.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. So I mean, that kind of takes us into the next one. So Bam is neither a superstar,
Well,
and in your interpretation, not quite a star either.
one thing
I
about
would
the Jimmy
say he's a
Butler
star.
thing, though, before we move off of Jimmy and Bam, though, Jimmy Butler was like there is evidence that he's right on the cusp of breaking through to superstardom because once after the Heat made the finals in the bubble,
Miller Lite commercials.
well, he got the commercials, but also he was number 10 in jersey sales in 2020. And remember how I keep banging the table on the jersey sales thing because to me it's like the most sort of
It's also the
hard
Vice
evidence
colors
that we
too.
have. What?
It's also the Vice colors.
The Vice
That was
colors
like
are a big part of it. Yes,
That was the
It's
number one
obviously a
selling
big part of it.
jersey for years.
He's
and I
also
think that was...
but last year Jimmy Butler was number 3 in jersey sales in France. So I don't know what that means, but he was.
Wow.
And I don't know why. And by the way, ahead of Rudy Gobert, which I found interesting. But
Ooh.
So,
that is very strange.
yeah.
That is very.
So I don't know. Like Jimmy Butler has like that worldwide, or I don't shouldn't say well, just people in Paris like him. I guess I don't know.
International
Maybe it's the
appeal,
fashion
maybe.
thing. I don't know. But there's
He likes
international appeal to
wine. He
Jimmy
drinks
Butler.
coffee. He likes football, what we call soccer in the Americans.
Is
you know,
he French? Is Jimmy Butler French? He might be French. Anyway, but I'm not there on superstar with him, even though I argue he should be. Right? If we're doing like the whole like Bleacher Report, let's get a social media clip out there. It's Jimmy Butler should be a superstar, and people who don't think that are full of it, and they have no idea what they're talking about. The NBA has to get behind him and push him more.
Okay.
Like we could do that segment if we want, but whatever the reason is, I think he ought to be a superstar. He's not. Bam Adebayo, same thing. I don't think the Heat have a superstar on the roster.
I guess Kyle Lowry doesn't qualify
Absolutely
either.
not. No.
I don't think Kyle ever qualified as a
No,
superstar.
he was never that.
He was never that game changer, like that
He was never a
singular
celebrity.
force. Like it's just there's so few guys in the league that are the singular forces like that can alter the course of a game.
Yeah.
LeBron is still one of them. I guess Anthony Davis is, and that's kind of like a tough one to be honest with
The
you.
thing with AD is like the injury stuff. Now that comes into play. Like, are you consistently making a difference on the court if 50% of your games you're not on the court? It's that's a little interesting thing. But yeah, I mean, look, you just look at the top guys: Giannis, Jokic,
Luka.
LeBron,
Is Luka a
Embiid,
superstar?
Steph. Luka absolutely is a superstar.
And yet, by Taylor's definition, and again, I hate to keep pinning it back to her, but this is what spurred it on in the first place. Like you've got to win the title, and I've long debated the idea that team success should define in any way how you're viewed as an individual player. Like one of the things that bothers me the most is that people complain about Mitch Richmond being in the Hall of Fame, and again, it's basketball Hall of Fame, not NBA Hall of Fame. But anyway, people complaining that Richmond was undeserving, that he only got in because he won as a role player a championship with the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, yeah, that's kind of overlooking the 10+ seasons where he was one of the best scorers in the league for the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors. Like this is. Like you can be a great individual player, and guess what? You still get stuck on really bad teams, especially during that era where you couldn't force your way out of a situation. But that's neither here nor there.
The flip side of this too is like Russell Westbrook is a superstar. Like ask just a casual person, not even an NBA fan. Like name 5 NBA players. A lot of them.
See, but he's an aging superstar now. Like he's no longer a game changer.
But he never won. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, he was a game changer. But he is still a superstar. Like Kobe Bryant, at the end of his
James
career,
Harden,
wasn't
is he a
very
superstar?
good. Yes, James Harden is a superstar. He has crossover appeal. The beard is the greatest piece of branding in the NBA history. I mean, it is. It is because he hasn't won anything, and he played in Houston, which is an okay market, but not an enormous market, right? It's a big market, but not an enormous one. He hasn't done anything really, and it's been nothing but playoff failures his entire career. But hey, the beard, Adidas shoe line, boom, superstar.
Is Joel Embiid a superstar?
Yes.
Okay. Pascal Siakam, is he a superstar?
No.
Won a title, been an all-star.
No. He's an all-star.
He's not a singular force in the NBA in terms of game changing.
No, I mean he's a 20-point per game scorer, gets you a bunch of rebounds, but I don't think he's making any differences defensively. He's fine, but he's not like to your definition. I don't think he's winning games on defense. And then no, he has zero celebrity status. He's got zero.
Jason Tatum,
there's
is
no
he a
Pascal
superstar?
Siakam rock songs. Mo Bamba is more of a superstar than Pascal Siakam.
All right, now that's just expanding it too much. Like it's like you have to be a popular, a reference in a pop song. Like Tyler Herro, is he a superstar?
Tyler Herro is the closest thing that you have to a superstar.
That is
Tyler
patently
Herro is
ridiculous.
more of a superstar than Jimmy Butler at this point.
You're now it's like it's shifting the other way here, where you're like the celebrity aspect is such a huge factor for you that Tyler is a part of a Jack Harlow song, or that he dresses questionably in terms of fashion, and that he gets the popularity he does at FTX Arena, notwithstanding. Like he is just not he is not a game changer. Like he's just not. He can't.
He's not a superstar yet. He's the closest thing the Heat have to one. Because once if Tyler Herro were to ever take the leap, and this will be my argument, if Tyler Herro were to ever, we expect that he will start this coming season, and if he were to take that leap to all-star player, and then does take that leap to the point where he is making more consistent game-changing type of an impact, then he's already got the crossover appeal. He's got that star celebrity power. For whatever reason, he has that it factor, that unidentified thing. He has it. If the talent were to back that up at some point, and the production, I should say, the consistent production to back that up, then he would just cross over, I think, immediately, and you would see Tyler Herro just completely ascend to the charts, up in jersey sales. I think the Heat would be on national TV more. He's right there if he could just make the leap from a production standpoint, because he has the star power in a way that, for whatever reason, Jimmy Butler just doesn't cross over. Tyler Herro does.
Well, I mean, I can think of one reason at least why. A lot of Eminem comparisons there. A lot of Eminem comparisons to Tyler Herro. I think that's a big part of the appeal there. But I don't know.
Kids these days like Jack Harlow more.
I'm sorry.
The kids these days like Jack Harlow more than Eminem, which, go listen to old school Eminem for you Jack Harlow heads.
Well,
nothing against Jack Harlow, but let's not even compare these two anymore.
No, I know. It's just the comparisons there as far as why Tyler might be more popular than Jimmy. But I don't know. It's a curious argument, kind of spurring us on here in the middle of the NBA drought in terms of news and things of that sort. But I'm not sure that I agree about Tyler's. Well, his crossover appeal might be there. If he takes that leap, I don't know if he's necessarily viewed that way either. I still think Jimmy should be viewed as a superstar. I think Bam could be there as well. Like if Bam hits a few game winners, like let's say Bam's offense kind of matched in terms of what Tyler's been able to accomplish throughout his career, like a couple game winners or close to clutch shooting and things of that sort. Given the defense that he plays, would that be enough for him to transcend that next level?
To star or to superstar? Because you have him as a star. No, I don't think Bam will ever be a superstar. I just don't think he has I think the world of Bam Adebayo. Would I go as far as no ceiling? I don't know.
Was Alonzo Mourning a superstar?
Alonzo Mourning, was he a superstar? I don't know that I can answer that. What do you think? Because his best years were the late 90s.
He had moments there in Charlotte where he was popular. Obviously, there was that famous commercial between with him and Charles Barkley, where Barkley was talking about if the one player he feared the most or something to that effect. It was with Alonzo because they were marketing him as the Bill Russell to Shaquille O'Neal's Wilt Chamberlain. Like Zoe was the defensive stalwart. He was the guy who was making more impactful, winning plays. Versus just huge productivity from Shaquille O'Neal, and he goes to Miami, and then he just embraces team culture, and there's the scouting phase, and he even won with the Olympics too, but he came back. He pissed off all of Canada, specifically Toronto, by refusing to play there. I don't know that he was. I don't know that he was a single
brand that he endorsed, and I know it was different back then, but it was. I can't really think of Alonzo Mourning in sort of the pop culture arena. I have no memory of him in that sense. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm putting way too much on the celebrity part of this, but that to me is sort of the difference. When I think superstar, I think Michael Jordan. I think Allen Iverson. I think LeBron. I think Steph. These are the players that I think of. They are just larger than life, players and presences in the game, and they have that crossover appeal. And when I say I don't think Bam Adebayo will ever be a superstar, it's not because I don't think he would be deserving or that he can't reach that level of talent or production or winning, however we want to define it. I just don't know that he has. I have yet to see him be sort of commercially viable as
Is
a
KD a
celebrity.
superstar?
Yes, Kevin Durant is a superstar.
You see, but he lacks the crossover appeal, but he has the
He is
consistent
not
on-court
appealing.
production.
He is not appealing, and yet
Well,
he does have the crossover appeal. He has crossed over into celebrity status. He is. He's absolutely a celebrity.
by whose definition? Like, what's a commercial that he's been in?
He's been
Has
in
he
a bunch of
been
commercials.
Sonic? Like
What's
maybe
he-
Sonic back in the day when he was with
Sonic.
Oklahoma
I think-
City?
I think he did Muscle Milk.
Neither of those things. He
But
looks like he
now
consumes
he's
neither of
got,
those
but
things.
he's sort of gone past that kind of stuff, and he's doing more of the ownership stuff. So he's like a presence
Wow.
in Silicon Valley, and he's got the boardroom. Like he's got his own ESPN channel basically at this point, on ESPN Plus. Like that's a superstar. You know what I mean? He's not an appealing person, and yet, and this is why I can't figure it out. Like Jimmy Butler is a very appealing person. I would love. Jimmy Butler is he checks every single box, and yet it just doesn't cross over, and I don't know why. I can't figure it out.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. If you agree, disagree with our definition of superstar, who qualifies and who doesn't, and whether or not Tyler Herro could be the next Heat player to become branded a superstar. Let us know. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. For your second listen, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily update in just 30 minutes. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
You gotta be.